Good. The kids are now back in school, and you know what that means. Popular fall sports programs are in full swing. Here's what you may not know. Each year, emergency rooms across the country treat an estimated 173,000 young people under the age of 19 for sports-related brain injuries, including concussions. And according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, that number is growing. Need to Know's Carlette Claire has more from local sports medicine experts who are teaching young people about the signs and symptoms of concussions and how to prevent them.
I didn't even realize I had lost until a sports reporter interviewed me after the fight in the dressing room, and that's when my life changed.
Ray Ciancaglini suffers from headaches, memory loss, and concentration problems associated with chronic encephalopathy.
Every one of these awards means so much to me. I had my first exposure to organized boxing at the young age of 14. And by the age of 16, I was already projected with a bright future in the ring.
The middleweight contender always dreamed of being a boxing world champion, like his role model, Carmen Basilio.
The crowd roared with every punch Carmen threw. And it inspired me so much that night that I ran in the back room. I put up a linen bag and I filled it full of linens and started using it as a punching bag.
But that dream began to fade after Ciancaglini received 2 concussions within 1 week.
I live with a little bit of, well, a lot of guilt. You know, I did this to myself. I didn't rest and take the rest that I should have. And I just took every fight. I never ducked anybody. We're going back in the mid-60s. We didn't understand concussions like we do today. And I had never been knocked out or knocked down in my entire career. And there was always a misconception then about you had to be knocked unconscious to get a serious head injury or concussion.
Both of which he never had until
one night I received a blow to the back of my head, and it kind of dazed me. And I fought through it and won a unanimous decision.
But then Ciancaglini developed a slight headache and fatigue, which he shook off as just being physically run down from the fight the night before. Little did he know he was suffering from the symptoms of a mild head injury while training for the next fight later that week.
I wasn't as sharp as usual in that fight in Syracuse, and I got my bell rung again for the second time in 1 week.
In 1971, Ciancaglini failed a brain exam called an EEG and was withheld from boxing in New York State, pending a repeat test and review from the Boxing Commission's advisory board. He sidestepped the regulation and was able to get in the ring in other states using a number of aliases.
I just thought I was invincible. I challenged a concussion and I got beat. It's a gamble that the wager and risk far outseeds the prize. The gloves I trained with, boy, they're sold, they're cracking. And
Ciancaglini hung up his boxing gloves and robe for good at the age of 23. At 44, the former boxer was diagnosed with Parkinson's syndrome and dementia pugilistica, now referred to as CTE. Ciancaglini says he has good days and bad days.
It was really frustrating when they restricted my driving and hiking. But I think what hit me the hardest was when with my granddaughter, being with her, I have to be supervised because of memory lapses. I'm not capable, it's tough to take her for a walk and things.
Ciancaglini tells his story so other athletes won't go down the same road.
A lot of athletes want to be stoic, they want to ignore the signs and symptoms because they don't want to be taken out of the game, but really getting them to understand why it's important to be taken out of the game for an injury to the brain is really the goal, so that they will advocate for themselves and tell a coach or tell a parent when they have some of the signs of a concussion.
St. John Fisher College is also working to help young athletes avoid permanent brain injuries. They offered a free concussion education program over the summer.
Middle school aged athletes are right now the highest percentage athletes being diagnosed with concussions. So we're seeing more and more middle school athletes with concussions. On top of that, most schools that do offer impact testing do not offer it to their middle schoolers. They usually start in 9th grade. And so the middle school population is an important population to try and access early.
That's an ad.
About 30 athletes took an impact test, which measures a student's verbal and visual memory and processing speed. It gives an idea of how each child's brain functions at a baseline.
The brain is unfortunately a very sensitive organ, and because it sits inside of your head and on top of your neck, when your head gets hit, it rotates on top of your neck. And the cells in the brain are like big spaghetti strands, and there's no other cells in the body that are like this. But those spaghetti strands allow the one side of the brain to communicate with the other. That's why concussion ends up being a problem, because of the way these cells in the brain are shaped.
Edison Tech freshman Varissara Villanovia took the baseline test. She worries about getting a concussion.
Yeah, kind of. Like when I played soccer for Franklin, if you're goalie or any position you play for soccer, it's dangerous to worry about, because if the soccer ball hits you in the head, it could have a bad impact and it could hurt really bad. And when you're headbutting the ball, the ball has impact to your head too.
Dr. Jeffrey Bazarian of the U of R says the number of athletes he sees is increasing year to year, suspecting that there are more area athletes not receiving proper concussion care.
Everybody knows about a loss of consciousness or a period of time where you don't remember. That's pretty straightforward, but there are more subtle signs of concussion, like a headache, dizziness, nausea, trouble concentrating, things like that are a little more subtle.
Dr. Bazarian says if an athlete is exhibiting these symptoms, they should be removed from the game. The rule is they should rest, then repeat the impact test before being allowed to play again. But how many knocks to the head is too many?
The human evidence suggests that there's probably a threshold. It's just not entirely clear what it is. It's probably somewhere in the 3 to 4-ish range, but that really depends. There's a lot of mitigating circumstances. Depends on what the athlete brings to the injury and how quickly they recover from each concussion and some of the specifics. So it's not a simple question to answer. There's no right answer in 2014. And I'm hoping that as we get more evidence from a research standpoint, we'll be able to answer that a little more definitively.
Although contact sports are a risk for concussions, Ciancaglini says parents should continue to let their children play sports.
The message is out now, and the help is there. Make the smart choice. It's as simple as that, and it's not rocket science.
For Need to Know, I'm Carlette Claire.
Out there now, but it's